Morning to you and welcome, my dear Televi. You get informed conversations that shape our world, and on this program, go beyond to science, health, entrepreneurship, cities, stronger societies, and meaningful conversations. First step towards sustainable change. So today we have a whole lot packed for you as usual. First, we'll take you across the headlines and then we'll highlight take you across the headlines where we'll highlight the major news stories that are shaping the nation and the world, and then our discussion segment to sit down with our analyze issues that matters to the issues that matters to the to provide insight and context beyond the surface. What's trending? Yes, Wale, good morning.
Good morning, Cynthia. Well, today is the 1st of
Okay,
March.
an
Take
assistant.
up the responsibility of reminding you.
Minding you.
Facebook wasn't the first thing I built. I also built chat systems and games, study tools and music players, and I'm not alone. J.K. Rowling got rejected 12 times before she finally wrote and published Harry Potter. I don't know how to build a dam. I don't know how to get 1 million people involved in anything. Well, let me tell you a secret. No one does when they begin. Ideas don't come out fully formed. They only become clear as you work on them. You just have to get started.
Human augmentation. Human augmentation is enhancing human abilities through exoskeletons, wearable technology, and brain-computer interfaces. For instance, exoskeletons are helping individuals with mobility challenges walk again, while brain-computer interfaces allow users to control devices with their thoughts. However, concerns around accessibility and privacy remain. The market for human augmentation is expected to grow to $298.5 billion by 2027, driven by demand in healthcare, defense, and personal productivity tools. Industry cloud platforms. Industry cloud platforms offer tailored solutions for specific industries such as healthcare, finance, and manufacturing. These platforms provide specialized tools to meet regulatory compliance requirements while boosting operational efficiency. For example, healthcare cloud platforms streamline patient data management and support care coordination. However, the challenge lies in ensuring data security and interoperability between platforms. The market for industry cloud platforms is expected to reach $83 billion by 2025. Internet of Things, IoT. The Internet of Things, IoT, is all about creating a connected network of physical devices, from smart refrigerators to industrial sensors that collect and exchange data. IoT applications are driving efficiency in industries like healthcare, manufacturing, and transportation, but security vulnerabilities are a growing issue. With more devices getting connected, cyber attacks targeting IoT systems have surged. Despite these challenges, the IoT market is forecasted to reach $1.6 trillion by 2025, making it a pivotal technology in smart homes, cities, and industrial processes.
Welcome back. You're still watching the Idea Morning Digest, and in case you're just joining, you are right on time. So the first story we have here, Nigeria's value-added tax collections rose to 1.08 trillion naira in January 2026, marking the first full month under the revised VAT sharing formula. This represents an 18.5% increase from December's 913.96 billion naira. After deductions, 1 trillion naira was available for distribution among the three tiers of government. Under the new structure, the federal government now receives 10%, states 50%, and local governments 35%. In January, the federal government received 100.32 billion naira, while states shared 551.77 billion naira, and local governments received 351.13 billion naira. The change reduced the federal government's share but significantly increased allocations to states. The surge in VAT revenue comes amid ongoing tax reforms and debate over whether the VAT rates should be increased. Economic analysts say while the reform strengthens national revenue, states must improve transparency and invest the additional funds wisely, as higher earnings may exceed earlier projections for 2026 if the current trend continues. So I think this development ties to the new tax reform that was introduced by the president earlier this year, January 1st. And I think to me, the 1 trillion naira, sounds kind of dramatic in a country that has 100 million people, and it tells us that about economic activity and how consumption is being taxed, because VAT is consumption tax. So it tells us how how consumption rather is being taxed. So when collections rise, because it is stated there that it rose pretty much in a single month, and it can mean two things from what I have perceived. Is either economic activities have increased, or compliance and enforcement have become tighter as regards the new tax reform systems. So I just, in the case of Nigeria, I think it's often more about enforcement and digital tracking. I feel like that compliance that the chairman Oyedele talked about, earlier this year, when he was still trying to clarify and make Nigerians understand, when the president said he's not going back on the new tax reforms when people were complaining, citizens were complaining. I think this is he said it's more about compliance than trying to extort people. Nobody is trying to extort anybody, so it's more about compliance. So I think the compliance thing, especially using digital tracking, is beginning to work to an extent, and it's beginning to work to an extent because we're seeing that consumer boom all of a sudden. Many businesses that used to operate informally before are now visible on the system, because according to him, they are going to get everybody into the system, other small business owners and whatnot. Everybody are going to be in line with the system. And now I think this is very, we are not seeing that. And what even stood out to me is the fact that the states and local governments are now gaining more, and the share to federal government, I think, is 10% a year. Even if 10% is not really a small matter, a small thing, but I think it is important that we are seeing that states have because states have argued about direct burden of providing services like schools, like roads and all of those things. And for a very long time, most of us to always talk about decentralizing some of these provision of responsible public services to people in the state. So I think now for the what do they call it, the revenue to be higher for local government and state, I think it stands as an opportunity for state to now be able to provide these services to people in the state. And I think this adjustment is very, very important and very, very useful. I know that in all of this, it will not, the money, the revenue being generated will not instantly translate into, or automatically translate into better governance. But I think this is a good start. And as time goes on, I feel like it's going to bring significant results.
Indeed, that's exactly what people will expect in the long run, that this development will bring significant results and changes in the lives of people. But let's dial back a little bit. Well, the conversation was going on at the National Assembly when the bill was being proposed, because it was an executive bill that was proposed at the National Assembly. We saw extensive stakeholders engagement, discussions from different quarters. Even state governors were having discussions about, because they were going to get value-added tax based on things that were being sold on their territories, economic activities that were happening in their territory. And they felt the president was supporting Lagos State. And the president's, the tax committee, saddled with the responsibility of ensuring that reform takes place, which is led by Oyedele, brought out a list of states and how the revenue has been shared over the years, and how it's going to be shared, and how it's not even, the bulk of it is not even going to Lagos State or even the Southwest. There are some issues where Lagos, Kano, and some highly populated states are going to benefit more. But those are issues that have gone past. Now we're seeing the dividend of this tax reforms. And 1 trillion naira, that's not small money that is being shared among the 3 tiers of government. And the federal government has the lowest share, as we've seen. The state government have 55%. That's the largest share going to state government. Governors, let's call them by their names. And the local government as well have 35%, while the federal government takes 10%. So the lion's share of this tax revenue is going to the state governments. And you've mentioned how for many years we've seen state governments owing salaries, state governments complaining about how they are unable to manage their own resources by themselves. This is a federal system of governments. They should be able to control the resources that are situated in their own state. And there have been conversations about, even from states from the Niger Delta, if we cannot be able to extract the oil ourselves, give the contracts to people and sell the oil and give revenue back to the government, then you can go ahead to do that for other states as well. So the federal government continues to take a whole lot of burden in managing resources, and now we see that they are also saddled with that responsibility of distribution. And the state government, I must emphasize again, are getting more share now. So I think people's focus should be less on the federal government and more on the state government. What are they delivering? What are they doing with the money that is being put into their own coffers? Because most state governors are preparing for election, they are buying things that are not necessary, they are awarding contracts that are not representative of what the people's needs are. So I believe that more scrutiny should go into how state governors are spending the money. And we now see that since the federal government says they want to start paying local governments their money themselves, rather than paying it to the state's account, because usually it goes to the state account, and we see how governors in Nigeria have stifled and also stepped down on democratic systems when it comes to local government elections in their own states. They appoint council, they appoint I've forgotten what they call them, but they have appoint people that are supposed to be like representatives or local government officials, rather than allowing elections to happen. And even in instances where elections happen, we see that one major party, the ruling party, just takes all of the votes when it comes to all the local government elections. So they appoint caretakers. That's the name I wanted to remember. Caretakers of a political party to represent the local government. Now that we see money is going into that, we see more democratic systems in the local government, now we see more people interested in that because there's
Mm.
money there
There
now that they can get. But that shouldn't be the focus of interest for people about the money or what they should get. The essence of governance from the local government level should be about representing the people. This is the closest government to the people. It should attend to people's needs, should be able to be responsible when crises arise. So all of those areas, little amenities that should be provided should be there because this one is going down to it. But what we've seen now is that there are more politicians who are driving their children, say go to pick up the ticket at the local government. So I believe that more young people shouldn't focus only on the presidency. Let's focus on the state and the local government as well. If you can't take up the ticket, if it's not possible for you to, 35 years, I think that's the lowest you can go for being the president. But I believe that it should be lower for states and even the local governments. If you have that experience and you can get Ghana resources together to...
I think it's lower at the state level.
To Ghana resources together to be able to contest for elections when it comes to the local government level, you can still make a change in that area. So a lot of attention, I believe, is in federal government. It's wonderful, it's needed, but more attention should be placed on governors and local government chairmen, and let's see what they are doing with the money that has been allocated to them.
Very well said. And okay, let's see the next story we have here. Nigeria's federal government has banned all cash tax collections and outlawed the use of roadblocks for tax enforcement as part of sweeping new tax administration reforms. The announcement was made yesterday in Abuja by the Executive Secretary of the Joint Revenue Board, Olusegun Adesokan, during the signing of the Presumptive Tax Regulations and Implementation Guidelines. The new framework, which took effect from January 1st, 2026, follows the tax reform law signed in June 2025 by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Officials say the measures are designed to promote transparency and informal collection practices and standardize tax administration across federal, state, and local government through digital payment systems. Under the regulations, small businesses with annual turnover of 12 million naira and below are exempt from tax, while other informal businesses will pay 1% of turnover. The government says the reforms aim to simplify compliance, improve coordination, and strengthen accountability with an ombudsman mechanism introduced to address compliance during implementation. Still talking about tax, Wale. Very interesting that we're seeing all of this coming out, because I actually think this is one of the most practical reforms we have seen in a while. And the decision to ban cash tax collection is not just an administrative one. I really think it ties to the daily realities of small traders, ties to the daily realities of transporters, of market people, and who can often face harassment, one form of harassment, especially transport and market people. All of these people I've mentioned, you see some sort of self-acclaimed middlemen stationed everywhere collecting what they shouldn't collect. After you must have paid whatever tax you're supposed to pay, you see them in different informal checkpoints trying to collect and extort from people. And we have had this roadblock for years, and these roadblocks have been used as an unofficial tax points, which is not good at all. And collections were sometimes undocumented because these people are not officials from any government level. Sometimes even if they are, they will just look for a way to extort people. But I think that kind of system have created so many leakage gaps for a very long time now. It's also it has also damaged trust. I think that's the reason why when the tax reform was rolled out last year, people were seriously against it. And whenever I say it, whenever I tell people that this tax reform is not here to hurt us, people will want to eat you raw, and they will be like, what are you saying? Are you a Nigerian? But when you study it very well, when you look at it very well, when you understand it very well, and that's why I was advocating for proper education and awareness for citizens about the tax reforms, because this is what has damaged that trust that people had because of this informal, revenue collection from people. So when people are unsure whether the money they are paying goes into the government account or goes into where it is supposed to go, and they are not seeing it manifest in real time in school, good roads, better policies, better projects in their communities, it's all of those compliance level will drop. So trying to bridge compliance gap, it cannot easily be bridged naturally because that trust has been eroded. But moving to digital payments, digital payment, first of all, I mean, we were talking about data yesterday. It's about data. And when I talk about data, I'm trying to talk about that traceability, because once a payment leaves your account and goes directly into a government portal, it creates a record. So we have gotten the data then. But then that record can be, it will allow that record to be audited. It will allow them to have data of the amount of maybe traders, transporters, people in the society. And it will also protect taxpayer from especially all of these small business owners, taxpayers from being harassed and whatnot. But then I'm just looking at the fact that sometimes I don't want to go, I don't want to make it seem as if I'm drawing, like we're going back on progress, because people do not really have, how will I put it, people do not really understand this, how to use digital system in Nigeria, whether we like it or not. There are so many people that do not still understand what to do with the digital system. Talking about the small business owners, and I know they're exempting nano and very small enterprises from some certain turnovers there. But me, I'm looking at bridging that digital gap so it is inclusive, because whether we like it or not, there are still going to be people that are going to be exempted from it, and that exemption will still, those people that are exempted will still face all of this, extortion and what not. So I just feel like there should be a way, even if it's to go from market to market, parks to parks, and get people registered on it and say, come, this is how to, pay. And should I even say tax or station tax for people that will not follow bureaucratic processes, that will make sure that, okay, people pay, and those that do not know how to, teach them how to use the system. So I'm never holding back on, digitizing everything, but it's just that inclusivity, because, like I said, we cannot take away the fact that so many Nigerians cannot still operate, digital systems. They cannot still maneuver, find their way around digital systems. And even digital systems, when we even talk of digital systems, it is infrastructure that will support digital systems. And in many parts of Nigeria, we're still seeing low level. I don't know how much we want to emphasize on this issue of internet access being unstable in different parts of Nigeria, and power supply being inconsistent as well. If you get a transporter in a semi-urban area who cannot complete a digital transaction due to network failure, it's a problem. What happens then? That implementation gap will still be there. That compliance gap will still be there. So when they talk about all these reforms, we will still face all these struggles, because these challenges have not been, dealt with. So, and I also find the introduction of an ombudsman mechanism very interesting too, because it signals that the government is aware that the government is aware of disputes, and that disputes will arise whether we like it or not. So, but an ombudsman must be very independent and responsive, and that's why I was talking about if we station like tax force. So this ombudsman is more like the tax force and all of those. They have to be independent and they have to be very responsive, not just it should not just be a desk where people will just go and sit down and rest. If you go to many government offices and government stations, you will just see people just sitting down there and they hardly know what to do. So in all of this, my view is just that this reform is less about revenue and more about credibility. It's more about accountability, more about inclusivity. If citizens begin to see that tax administration is fair and is structured rather than coercive, I feel like there will be voluntary compliance. You won't force people to what is good. People will easily run to, what is good.
Well, indeed, if we look at what this tax reform has done, is that it has reduced the burden on people who are earning lower compared to, and shifted the burden to people who are earning more. So that's what's has been done over the past few months, when they've worked extensively to establish the reform and institute it. But now we're seeing the system being digitized, away from the analog system of going from companies to companies, or having officials move around and sign the paper and tell you this is how much you'll pay and all of that. I believe that is one of the ways to cut down corruption from the collection point. But corruption itself is not only there alone. We understand that we're losing billions, I should say, from the collection point, because a lot of corrupt officials that are exploiting the loopholes that are there within the tax and taxation system that we practiced before now. But now that we're digitizing the system and putting it into a system that is more accountable, that is more transparent, and that is more open, and that is also less susceptible to being influenced by people from the collection centers or local levels, it makes it more interesting, it makes it more valid when people have that confidence that their money, that the money they're paying is not being taken by the officials that came to collect it from them. But secondly, people would want to ask, if we're doing it at this graduate level, what are we doing at the implementation level? What are we doing at the distribution level as well? What are we doing at the collation level? Because all of this money have been collected, collated, accounted, and then distributed back to state at the end of the day. While all of these steps are important, there are still loopholes in all of those places that might be susceptible to people's influence and corrupt practices. But another thing that I feel that this targeted is also people in the informal sector, where they've been set to pay 1% of their turnover. At the end of the year. But we must understand that the informal sector that you're talking about are people with big businesses, stores, usually unregistered and all of that. They're not market women that are selling pepper by the roadside, because those people are taxed as well. If we look at the place that they are staying, the location where they are, we say, oh, this is roadside, this is government's work areas, those are pavements, they shouldn't be there. But those women are there, they are also being taxed by people that are there. Transport workers are also being taxed every single day. I'm not sure if their turnover at the end of the day, if they deduct all of their cost and expenditure, it's enough for them to realize 12 million naira at the end of the year for them to be taxed. So those are areas that we need to look into to see what can we do differently to ensure that ordinary people that are of the lower economic chain are also benefiting from this system rather than being exploited by the system, because those are the bulk of people that will complain. Those are the bulk of people that the price of foodstuff in the markets are really, really important to, because they make their money daily, they buy their food daily. They don't have the luxury of rich people that stock food in their houses. For 6 months, they might not go to the markets to buy whatever they want to buy. But ordinary people who have to go to the markets every single day to buy that will understand what it feels like to be taxed, will understand what it feels like to have value-added tax added to most of the commodities that they consume daily. So those are areas that I feel that we should also be looking into. And this is a tax system that we're just starting. There will be challenges along the way. There will be areas that needs to be improved upon, and there will be things that we can strengthen. Areas that we can strengthen to ensure that it is more responsive to the people's needs. But I believe that Oyedele, he is now moving to the position of the Minister of State for Economy, the Finance Minister of State, and So he's done so well. He's been rewarded, but I believe that they should continue to do the best that they can do for the benefit of Nigerians. There was a time he made mention that Nigeria is not getting enough from tax. If you look at South Africa, they get triple or quadruple of what Nigeria gets, and telling them the industries that are in South Africa, the people that are there. But if we have a system still, even if we're not getting enough as South Africa is getting, we can be able to at least get higher, just like we've mentioned in the last conversation we had about the $1 trillion after the excess and some other things have been deducted from it. So it's really, really important what we are doing. It's valid. It's important for economic growth and development. But what are we doing with the money? Because Nigerians have sacrificed too much for this government. This government has been very, very forceful when it comes to implementing their policies and the change they want to make. All of these changes are important, they are necessary, but people are asking, are they not too soon? They're back to back all the time. But we've sacrificed that, we're enduring that. We want to see the dividends of it as well.
I mean, we were pre-warned.
Yeah, we're still pre-warned right now, because 2027 is fast approaching as well.
Okay, let's see the next story we have here. The African Intellectual Property Organization has partnered with the World Intellectual Property Organization to establish a regional network of technology and innovation support centers across its 17 member states. The initiative was agreed at a planning meeting held on February 26 and 27 in Yaoundé. The centers are designed to give inventors, researchers, universities, and small and medium-sized enterprises improved access to patent databases, scientific literature, and intellectual property training. OAPI, Director General Denis Loko Bahoso, says the network will serve as a critical link in the innovation value chain and support a knowledge-driven economy. Under the plan, OAPI and WIPO, and member states will coordinate funding, technical support and staff training and digital tools to strengthen documentation centers. The broader aim is to improve the protection and commercialization of African inventions and enhance the competitiveness of innovative businesses across the bloc. I think this, when we talk about Africa's innovation future, I think this is what we are talking about because...
as we're seeing from the map, it seems Nigeria is missing. It seems Nigeria is missing from that growth.
Reinventing, or they'll avoid reinventing, how should I call it, the wheel. So I think they can see what's already exists and improve on it. So that's why patent is very, very important for when you talk about knowledge database. And many African inventors have struggled not because they lack the ideas, not because they lack the potential or even the will, but I think it's because they lack structured support for a very long time, especially when it even comes to sciences, as they're pushing for here. It's not like this part of the world, Africa, lacks that knowledge or lack that will or lack that technical know-how, but we have lacked the support for a very long time, especially structured, not just structures funding support too. And first of all, filing a patent, it can be very complex because it involves documentation, it involves prior researches, and sometimes it involves money. That's why I say we need structured funding. When we are talking about owning our own patents, where we can go back to, we need proper funding, and technology and innovation support centers too needs to be available, especially in universities and for especially in universities. Let me not even go too far, especially in universities, and it all goes back to the funding I'm talking about. So we just must be honest with ourselves that Africa's challenge is not about patent registration. It's not just about that. When we talk about knowledge database and all of it, it's not just about patent registration, it's about commercialization. And we have seen university research projects that never move beyond the shelves. Which shelf safe? There's this video. This takes my mind back to this video that's always circulating. Students' project. I don't know. You must have seen that. Not a video, a picture, where students' projects were loaded in an incinerator and something like that. So that's our own database is in an incinerator. People are using it to wrap akara, or people are using it to sell popcorn and guguru and whatnot. But so that's why I'm saying it is about commercialization, where we have seen so many university projects. We have seen where they end up. They will not move beyond that incinerator. I mean, that's where they'll end up most of the time, or they'll end up for us using it to tie Guru. So while we are trying to expand patent access, which is very good and very important, the whole ecosystem of academics, intellectual property and whatnot must include planning for proper financing, structure funding. They must improve planning for manufacturing capacity too, and that's where we go back to commercialization again. Access to the African knowledge market, because whether we like it or not, knowledge too can be commercialized. Knowledge too can be a market too. Otherwise, all of the patents we are talking about will become they'll just end up as certificates, as they already do now. So I also think the fact that this network covers 7 African countries is very significant. So it's very good, because I feel like it will help them operate a unified intellectual property system. And that's why the OAPI is there. So I think it is very important, very, very important. I remember we spotlighted PAU, that's the Pan-African University, where they have different, should I say cell? I was holding my mouth not to say cell, but should I say different departments in different regions, in 4 regions in Africa. I have one in University of Ibadan, have a department in Cameroon. There's a Bureau University. They have one in Morocco, if I am not mistaken, and they have one other one. So in different African, West Africa, East Africa, like that. So I think all of those things are important. Those are the kind of things that university was developed by the African Union. So when we talk about patent, let's go back to our universities, especially when we talk about a unified patent like that. Let's go back to these universities that we have established and we are not giving serious attention to. What have we been doing with them? A lot of people do not know that there is that link from this side of the from this region of Africa to this region of Africa, under one umbrella, one university, PAU. So what are we doing with that kind of, knowledge investment? It has been there, but it's not really churning out much. So when we talk of patent, it has to fall back to all of this thing, because we have to start thinking of how to protect our innovators, because if not, our innovators will not hesitate to go where they will have better, thriving ground. But altogether, I like that they are revisiting this issue. It is very important, and especially because it is science, which Africa does not really focus on that much, and it is very important to us, to our society.
Okay, well, very quickly, because we're fast out of time. I'm happy that the OAPI is making this bold step, because we need a unified structure, and this will serve as a bank for where different patent ideas can come in, and it's going to also channel them and also spotlight them for investors and people who are interested in partnering to establish things out of the patent that has been developed. Because just like you mentioned, it's not for it to be developed. It's not. The lack of it is not the issue here. It's what we make of it, and how do we centralize a system that ensure that industries are meeting with this people that are innovating, that are creating these wonderful ideas, that have their businesses or their ideas patented already. So it's very important that we have that unified system which they're creating. But I think more attention should focus as well on how they can get funding, just like they mentioned that the state will coordinate funding, technical support and staff training, and digital tools to strengthen documentation centers. So it's important that they get more funding, more collaboration between industries, and more collaboration as well with international agencies and their counterparts in Europe, in America, because it makes it even more accessible to investors in those countries. And it makes them even see the areas that they've worked on that has already been implemented or is already working in other countries. Because sometimes we might feel like we have the best idea and we've written the patent, we've signed it into a very structured way, but when we look at other countries and we see that they've even gone far ahead than what we've developed here. So those are areas that we need to look at, and I believe that the training and the collaboration efforts that they're trying to put in place will really help in achieving that.
Very well said. Okay, that's the much we can bring to your way this morning across the headline. But these are the news we brought to you. Nigeria's VAT revenue hits 1 trillion naira as new sharing formula takes effect, and the federal government bans cash tax collection and roadblocks under new rules. OAPI and WIPO launch regional network to expand patent access in 17 African countries. We'll go on a quick break now, and when we're back, we'll bring you up to speed with the discussion segment.
Number 1, synthetic biology advances. Synthetic biology is pushing science into new territory. Using AI-guided gene editing, researchers are engineering organisms to produce biofuels, biodegradable plastics, and even synthetic meat. In 2023, Ginkgo Bioworks announced partnerships to design microbes that can manufacture sustainable chemicals at scale. Moderna and BioNTech are expanding mRNA technology beyond COVID vaccines to treat cancer and rare genetic diseases. The global synthetic biology market is expected to surpass $30 billion by 2030. By 2026, the line between biology and technology will blur even further, making synthetic biology one of the most transformative fields of the decade. So there you have it, 15 more technologies that, alongside the first 17 we covered, are set to define 2026. Together, they show how quickly innovation is moving beyond our screens and into every corner of our life, from the materials we use to the way we connect and even how we think. And if you missed part 1, make sure to check it out next. If you made it this far, let us know what you think in the comment section below. For more interesting topics, make sure you watch the recommended video that you see on the screen right now. Number 3, sustainable tech and green computing. With data centers now consuming around 1 to 1.5% of the world's electricity, efficiency has become critical. Google, Microsoft, and Amazon are racing to power their data centers with renewable energy, while chip makers like NVIDIA and AMD are optimizing for performance per watt. Carbon capture startups are using AI to scale up efficiency, and researchers are designing fully recyclable electronics. In 2024, Microsoft announced it had achieved 100% renewable energy coverage for its global operations. By 2026, green computing will no longer be optional. It'll be baked into how the tech industry operates.
Okay, it's very good to know that you're still with us. This is the Idea Morning Digest, and yes, before the break, I told you we'll be bringing you up to speed with the discussion segment, and here we are. The conversation is something that touches almost every Nigerian, what almost every Nigerian depends on for their daily lives. Mobile numbers, very, very important. Seeing from bank alerts to business transactions, job applications, school portals, and even government verification systems. A phone number today is more than just a communication tool. It is a digital identity. Now, the Nigerian Communications Commission has proposed that telecom operators must give subscribers a minimum of 14 days notice before deactivating their SIM cards due to inactivity or post-paid churn. The proposal is part of a broader regulatory review tied to a new system called the Telecom Identity Risk Management System, or TERMS, a platform designed to reduce fraud linked to recycled or swapped mobile numbers. Under the proposal, operators must notify subscribers through an alternative line or email at least 14 days before final deactivation. They would also be required to submit churn data to the new identity risk platform within 7 days. At first glance, this may look like a simple procedural adjustment, but beneath it lies a deeper issue: digital identity protection, financial security, and consumer rights in Nigeria's fast expanding telecom ecosystem. So this morning we are asking, is this just a notification rule or a turning point in how Nigeria treats mobile numbers as critical digital infrastructure? Let's unpack this, and let me start here because we have moved quietly into a stage where phone numbers in Nigeria, like I started off saying, is no longer just a telecom service. It's an infrastructure for our daily lives. It's an infrastructure in our daily doings in life, and it's more like an identity, because your phone number is used for almost everything. You want to go to the bank and register, get a new account, verify your account, or verify whatever issues you have with the bank. You'll be required to, submit your phone number. So phone number is very important in this part of the world. And think about, let's say, your bank alerts, comes in there. Everything without your phone number, you can't even receive bank alert. You can't do a lot of things. Even you go to, even for healthcare, bank alert rather is very important. You're trying to link your BVN, you're trying to link your NIN. Everything is linked to your NIN. We're talking of WhatsApp business. I mean, if you don't even have a phone number, you can't even open a WhatsApp. And we know how WhatsApp is more even like a contact list these days. So I think I think they say they want to do a two-factor authentication code. If someone wants to reset their email, wants to do recovery and all of those, that phone number is very important altogether. But I'm just looking at a country where formal identity system are still we're still trying to stabilize formal identity system, because the mobile number has become the most consistent the most consistently used digital identifier for the past how many years now? For the past over 10 years now. And we have in Nigeria, I think, over 220 million telecom users, people who are actively using telecom lines in Nigeria. And for many people, especially for traders, especially people in the informal sector, phone number is very, very important. So I personally think that we have outgrown the idea or that a SIM is just a plastic chip, it's just something to make call. It's like an identifier, like I started off saying. It's something that carries, we cannot look past something that carries so much economic and security weight. It should be treated, being treated as casual, on a casual term. This is just to say it is very important. But Wale, now let's talk about the 2 weeks, 14 days ultimatum that have been given to people. Notice rather that have been given to people before. I think it's going to run till 20th of March, if I'm not mistaken, until your number is blocked, until your number completely disappear. Is this realistic for Nigeria? Because we're talking about people in Lagos, Abuja, even in the Lagos, Abuja, how many people can, because they said that notification is going to come through mails and they're going to reach people from their other numbers. How sure, do they really know people other numbers? That's another thing. And how many people uses their mail, even people in formal sectors, even people that, even students and whatnot. I'm not sure in this part of the world so many people are used to using their mail. So do you think it is realistic, that timeline?
Well, the timeline should be realistic in some ways for people who are not incapacitated, people who are not struggling from whatever one challenge, medical challenge or the other. Because for a very long time we've talked about how SIMs, like you've mentioned, are one of the identity markers that we have in the country. When we even look at fintech companies right now, they use more phone numbers to generate an account for you, to enable you to carry out transactions on a daily basis. So we've seen it more useful in different areas of our lives, when it comes to the bank, when it comes to your transaction with your money, when it comes to registration with the government, or when it comes to having access to important information. It's more than just having a call. And it also has been a tool with which corruption has been made, and it's also a tool that some elements use to propagate their terrorism as well. So we've seen a lot of Nigerians being kidnapped in some places, and phone calls are being made. They're able to contact the families of the victims that they've been able to kidnap. And so Nigeria has been trying as much as possible to ask questions. Why haven't they enabled those numbers to be tracked? Why can't they be barred? Why can't they stop these people from getting access to phone lines to be able to threaten people and all of that? So those are issues that the government are trying to resolve, and the issues they're trying to save. But the 12-week deadline for a line to be barred, I think it's a feasible timeline. But of course, you understand, every human being, if you're given 2 years, some people will still find time to say that, oh, they didn't have the opportunity to go and get it done or what have you. So I think the 2 weeks is a somewhat realistic timeline for people to, realize that there's a challenge that has been made. But the medium with which they will be communicated with is what I think is crux of the matter right now. Will they be contacted before the line is barred? Will they be sent a text message on their phone? Or will they be sent an email? Or all these channels were going to be explored before a line is barred? And what happens after a line is barred? So are we going to just reopen it? Or there's going to be an investigation as to what happened, what led to it being completely banned from using that services? So all of these are mechanisms that needs to be put in place, and also the challenges that might arise after some lines have been barred. We have limited facilities for this network providers, so you might have the facilities overrun by people. That's why they have agents as well. So they have agents around different communities, different states that just serve as like a liaison officers for them to ensure that they can reach people and communicate with them and help them resolve their issues. So if you have a problem right now with your SIM, you don't need to go to the MTN office or the Glo office or the Airtel office or the Nine Mobile office or other service providers. You just need to be able to visit an agent workshop or an agent cubicle to resolve that issue. So is that going to also apply to when people's lines are being barred? Can they be able to resolve it there, or would they have to go down to the headquarters or the major centers that these people have? So those are areas that I believe that people are going to be questioning. And what also constitutes for your line to be barred? They mentioned that if it has been inactive for a number of time or it has not been used. We have Nigerians that travel abroad. A number of months they might not be in the country, and that doesn't mean that they're not responsible human beings, or they're not people who are legitimately using their line. So imagine their line being barred, coming into the country wanting to use your phone number to make calls or to make other important transactions, and you'll be prevented from doing that because your line has been banned because you've been away for a very long time. So those are issues that we need to look at. And how do we determine those that are in violation of those rules established and those that are in compliance, or those that are violating without even knowing that they are violating? And those are areas where I think orientation needs to happen. Not only through SMS, because not everybody that reads SMS, it's not everybody that open their mails and responds to messages. So I believe that these service providers as well should place a call and tell them, this is from ATN, this is an information that we have for you. I'm from Glo, I'm from Nine Mobile. I'm calling their name so that they won't say we're holding the brief from one, or this is Airtel. This is information that has been passed by the NCC, and this is what you should do. They have the opportunity to do that. So I don't know why they're not doing that. They only send messages out to people, text messages that most Nigerians would not see. I mean, for me, text message is not the best way to get to me. You can get to me on WhatsApp. I mean, it takes time for me to respond as well. But emails, I function well. But most Nigerians do not. Ordinary Nigerians, people in the markets that are using that line to conduct their business, to open fintech, financial companies that would enable them to carry out transactions. So those are really important for them, and those might be people who are hit the hardest. So how do you call them? How do you contact them? And how do you make them understand the law? Those are the areas that I think should be addressed.
You've said it very well. I think I would argue that 14 days. Yes, I would argue that that 14 days should be minimum, not standard. Let's I think they should rethink it, shift it to like 30 days. Let people have 1 month to get a hold of the information, because in 2 weeks and 14, they say 2 weeks and 14 days. In 2 weeks and 14 days, if I'm not mistaken, yes, 2 weeks and 14 days. In 2 weeks and 14 days, how will it get to people? Is it 2 weeks or is it 2 weeks and 14 days?
I think it's 2 weeks.
2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Just 14 days altogether.
Yes, 14 days altogether. Okay, that's how it is written here. I think that 2 weeks is too short. I mean, given what you've just explained, people who do not live in Nigeria, people who do not, usually check their phones. And let me even say something. That's why I like that you cited that example of people who are not using, who do not use their SIM regularly because of one issue or the other. Some people even use it, but they use it for a certain reason. There are some people who use a particular line is just dedicated for bank activities. A dedicated line is just, they dedicate this other line for something else. So they are not always recharging with this line or calling, making phone calls with these lines. It's just to maybe receive alert. Is my bank, you hear is my bank number. That one is for my bank. You hear this one, oh, is my school number. This is the one I use for, or this one is my official number. This is the one I use for all my official duties, and I hardly get calls from that. Or you hear this one is my business number. That one might be very busy. So all of these differences. So most of the time they may not be receiving alerts or calls or whatever from that number. Some may be receiving just alert from that number but not calls. They're not doing everything with that a particular number. A particular SIM might just be for transactions only. So and they don't make I think this is very important that we cite this, because in that case, just like you cited, in that case, what would happen to those lines? If we talk about recovery, how will people recover, them? So I think we need more time, not 2 weeks. 2 weeks sounds fair. It sounds like, okay, it's going to work, but it's not going to work for everybody. It's not going to, the news will not get to everybody, the preparation, because it's one thing to hear about something, a new development, another thing to prepare towards it. And in that case, what are people expected to do in order for their lines not to get bad? Is there a channel in which people will explain and say, okay, this line, this is what I use it for, but it's very functional because I have a line which is just like a secondary line for me. I won't say the network providers, but it's just like a secondary line for me. And that is not because I choose this one, because this one has I prioritize these telecom providers better than these other ones, because, okay, this was the one that was bought for me the first time I ever started using a SIM, and this is the one I've been using throughout my life. And for me to start switching from one line to another for this, and then as things started expanding, I say, okay, I now have a bank account. Okay, let me use this one for this, or let me use this one for social media. All of those things. So I think that's 30 days to me. I'm not fully convinced. 14 days rather. I'm not fully convinced. I think they should give up like 30 days notice before permanent deactivation. I think it will allow people the time to know what to do in this case, and they should provide information, better awareness. The awareness should be there, but they should provide. They should tell people what to do in cases of this, in cases of, that, considering how central phone numbers are to financial life here in Nigeria. It's tied to one thing or the other. And if you go back, you will see that most of our SIMs are tied to mostly financial life, our financial lives here. So there should 14 days should just be the minimum standard. Like I said, starting off, it shouldn't be like it shouldn't be the standard. It shouldn't be the core standard. And also, you mentioned that they should provide other means for reaching out to people, because they say they are going to reach out to you through mail and your alternative line. And I started off asking, how do they know your alternative line? And how are they sure they can reach you through your alternative line? And then email. Not everybody in this part of the world uses email. And I think, but we just have to... because that goes back to data accuracy again. How many of our data do they, have? Because a lot of people have different SIM registered. Some people even are registered to one telecom providers with different SIM, and so there's going to be a lot of confusion here. So I think the time for people to understand what is going on is needed here, because if we're truly serious about, because according to them, this is about consumer protection. So if we're truly serious about consumer protection, we may need layered notification. We may need layered, structured way of reaching out to people. SMS, like you stated, email, phone calls, especially direct phone calls, I think is important, especially for people that are not inclined with using their emails and and whatnot. So it is very important to use diverse ways to reach out to people. And then there's this issue about recycled numbers. I think you mentioned that. What are they going to use with what are they going to do with recycled numbers? Because, and I like that you pointed out how it facilitates somehow, with everything there are two sides. There's always an advantage and a disadvantage with how some of them facilitate violence, terrorism, and whatnot. So indeed, I'm asking what they are going to do with these recycled numbers, because it won't be an administrative issue again. It's a security risk too. It's going to pose its own security risk, because when a number is deactivated and later reassigned to another person, because they said those numbers are going to be deactivated and reassigned to another person. So I'm just looking at the case where the new user may inherit that digital footprint. I think we don't really talk about digital footprint that much. I was sharing, just to digress a little, I was sharing with somebody what I read about email. The email we leave, most of the email, that we should delete our emails once they come in. Once they're no longer useful again, we should delete it because they leave some sort of digital footprint. The person was like, how do they, and it causes climate issues. And somebody was saying, how does it? And I said the person is a long story. I think that's something we'll have somebody come here to talk about one time. So just to going back to what we are saying, I am still thinking of, okay, what if the new user, sort of inherits that digital footprints of the former, of the previous owner. So I'm just trying to imagine, okay, let's say you receive an OTP, because OTP, they'll tell you is just for you. View it and don't show any other person. You receive an OTP request from a bank account that isn't yours. I just don't know. That is not, because this is not, I'm not trying to create an hypothesis here. These things happens, So, because it is already happening that they give your SIM. There's one time they stopped, deactivated some SIMs, and then they give your number to a new person. So, with this SIM swap of a thing, I'm just looking at SIM fraud, and those number recycling vulnerabilities, what it has cost before now. So I'm just scared that it won't open that space and even make it wider than it already is, because there's financial fraud. We're still battling with it. So people can now penetrate and use people's numbers already. Those things exist. So with this kind of new initiative, I'm just scared that it won't open, more vulnerabilities, to this to the telecom ecosystem. And in that case, what will consumers or what will users of this, what do they call them, the new lines, do about it? So there are so many questions rather in my mind, and well, I don't know who have the answers.
Well,
they
will certainly find answers to all of these questions in the long run. But going back to the issue of the 14 days that has been provided, well, we can say that should be the bare minimum of the time that will be given for informing them, initial communication with the person, and subsequently, maybe a week after or two, they should then take the action. But we've seen time and again that even if you're given a year, just like I mentioned earlier, some people will still find the excuse of not doing it. When the BVN was being instituted in Nigerian banking system, and people were told that they have a certain period of time to go to the bank, I think few months were given for people. It wasn't until the last week that people were rushing into the bank. I mean, congesting the entire system to get their line registered so that their money will not be taken away according to the threat that they get. So what's going to be the penalty at the end of the day when a line has been bad? When somebody comes back to renew the SIM, will there be like a database, just like you've said, a footprint of the activities that they've done with the line, without also breaching their own privacy, user privacy at the end of the day? So are they going to be those information to guide whether or not this person is deserving of receiving this line back? Or if you're giving it out to another person, have you certain that the person who has used the number before is not somebody who has committed a crime or who is found wanting or responsible for a particular issue? So those are areas that they have to definitely holistically look into before they can make such decision. But I believe right now that even when you go to renew your SIM, if it's lost or something, it's not the same price as you getting it from getting the SIM newly. So those are issues that
That's
I've
another
seen
thing.
that and how they address them. So perhaps if your line is bad because of some grievous reasons, there might be stricter punishment to get before you get access to your SIM again. So those are areas that I believe they will definitely look into.
So even talking about the timeline, not for the users this time around, I'm talking of the timeline for operators, because they have to submit the churn of data in 7 days. I'm just looking at that timeline again. 7 days enough, I mean, to... I know digitalization have come to ease things a little, but I'm just looking at accountability to transparency here. Who is going to monitor it? Who is going to audit it? Who is going to ensure that people's data are not, or data rather, are not misused? And because we're talking about millions of records here, numbers, identity, links, activity status. These are all sensitive data. I'm very concerned about the ethical considerations too here, because this is a country that Nigeria is a country where we are still trying to strengthen our data protection culture. We are still trying to strengthen that transparency. When we talk of transparency matters, we are still trying to strengthen those areas. And the Nigerian what do they call them, Communication Act give I think they've given regulators that oversight. Yes, I think they've given Nigerian regulators that oversight powers. But beyond all of those legal authority, there must be public confidence. Still going to say, I like to talk about trust, but yes, there has to be, whatever we talk about, we have to still go back to trust. There will have to be public confidence in these telecom operators, so people know that their data are safe, and they really have to do well, because we're battling with issues of what do they call it, cyber crime, so many crime that they use the telecom space to perpetuate. So and will there also be, and the question that came to mind, will there also be a transparency report that will come up annually, so people will know? I know there are reports and data that used to come out, the telecom survey, how many people use whatever at a certain point in time. But given this new initiative, are there going to be like a transparency report that's going to come out annually? And also what do they call them, maybe even integrate it with financial services, maybe with banks, so people can, I know banks, you can search for your, what do they call it, your statement of account every year. I think they should bring something where we have to search for, that transparency report every year, with what where our data is going to, what they are doing with our data, and what you two are doing with your data, just to still going back to digital footprint, so we can be aware with all of these things, because whether we like it or not, trust in the digital system is very fragile. But then we've said a lot, and even if it's not enough, but we've said a lot here. But we want to hear from you. Is there something you would like us to know? You have a contribution to what we've just discussed today, all of which we've discussed from across the headlines to the discussion segment. Send in your opinion, send in your comments to us at Idea Television, all our social media platforms, and via email at Idea TV Limited. We want to hear from you, because your opinion matters as well. But then let's take you to what's trending, and that will be after this break.
Number 7. Nanotechnology in medicine and electronics. When you shrink technology down to the nanoscale, you open up whole new possibilities. In medicine, researchers are exploring nanoparticles that deliver chemotherapy drugs directly to tumors, reducing side effects. MIT and Brigham and Women's Hospital have developed nanosensors that can detect cancer biomarkers in blood. In electronics, nanoscale transistors are already pushing Moore's Law further, with IBM unveiling a 2-nanometer chip in 2021 that promises major gains in performance and energy efficiency. The global nanotechnology market is projected to surpass $250 billion by 2030, showing just how central this field is becoming. Number 8. Self-healing materials. Materials that repair themselves aren't just science fiction anymore. Researchers at the University of Manchester developed a self-healing aerospace material that can autonomously patch small cracks in aircraft components. In 2023, LG Chem showcased self-healing coatings that restore scratches on car surfaces within minutes under heat. The potential extends to consumer electronics, where cracked phone screens may eventually fix themselves without a trip to the repair shop. Markets estimates the self-healing materials industry could grow to over $4 billion by 2027, with applications in automotive, aerospace, and infrastructure leading the way. Number 8. Self-healing materials. Material number 6. Digital twins for cities and industries. Digital twins, real-time virtual replicas of physical systems, are expanding fast. Singapore has already built a national digital twin to simulate urban planning, monitor traffic, and manage energy use. In manufacturing, companies like Siemens and GE use digital twins to model factories and machines, cutting downtime and improving efficiency. During the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, organizers tested digital twin technology to manage crowd flow and logistics. Analysts at Deloitte predict that by 2026, nearly 70% of large industrial companies will use digital twins in some form, making them a core part of operations.
Okay, good to have you back. And now let's see what's trending. On Tuesday, March 3rd, 2026, Edo State Governor Monday Okwebolo joined residents in a state in protest against power outages. The protest was organized by the group called Edo Against BEDC Operations, who marched peacefully against the prolonged blackout and poor electricity supply by the Benin Electricity Distribution Company. The governor aligned himself fully with the protesters, declaring that the Edo State government shares their own frustration and has nothing much to offer residents in terms of reliable power under the current arrangements. In a direct address to the crowd, Governor Okwebolo explained that BEDC is not government-owned and that the state has limited influence over its operations. Meanwhile, the governor specifically pointed out that Fidelity Bank holds a larger share and better stake in the company than the government. The governor then inferred the involvement of former Anambra State Governor Peter Obi by rhetorically asking who owns Fidelity Bank. I leave that to you to answer, without naming Obi outright, but leaving no doubt about the intended reference. Governor Okwebolo later promised decisive action to end the monopoly by bringing in new investors and additional stakeholders to improve generation and distribution across the state. First of all, I would just say I like that. Or should we see the video before we, Okay, let's see the video.
All of you. I was just passing by. Now, the frustration. Why are they trying to frustrate Edo people? I want you to listen very well. There are people that own BEDC. It's not government-owned property.
If I'm going to call this a very smart move from the governor, him trying to distance himself, he has chosen to align with the public, and I'm seeing it like him trying to distance himself from failure. But I like that at the end of it, he said he's going to put the electricity supply into the hands of other stakeholders. But then it's, aligning with protesters is politically smart because it is smart, but you should understand that it's very risky too, because governance is about responsibility. And even when the structure sort of limits your, power, if it's not, even if when it's not in your hands directly, you have to understand that it's still your responsibility because you are the governor of that state. And yes, we understand that electricity distribution companies were privatized after the unbundling of, I think, PHCN, how many years back now? 2013. I think it was in 2013. And states technically do not own discos, all of these discos. But citizens do not experience federalism in theory. They do not understand all of those where who owns the responsibility, who should take the responsibility, who you should direct your anger towards. The first person they are going to direct their anger towards is you, the governor of the state, because they believe that you are in control of things, and even if things are run by private public companies or private companies, you are to give direct them on what to do. So I think that holds they'll somehow hold who they want to hold accountable, which is the closest authority they will hold is the governor. And this reference to Fidelity Bank and the indirect mention of Peter Obi, I don't know where that is coming from. I think sort of introduces, that's why I say this is a political move to me. It sort of introduces politics into what should ideally be a service, delivery issue. Because I don't know where that is coming from. There might be something attached to that. Maybe Wale will bring us and but once the door is open, I think the conversation shifts from transformers and feeders to political rivalry. That's what we are seeing there. We're trying to solve another problem. You're bringing another confusing issue to the matter, and that may sort of energize supporters who. Because we are in that we are in election period, so whatever you say, supporters are going to use it, you're going to fill them, you're going to energize them whatsoever, and it's going to complicate the solution, and we don't want that. What I really like to see is structural clarity here. Who owns the responsibility to provide, electricity for Edo State people? Because we've seen that since 2023, there was an Electricity Act, I think, which was revisited, and states now actually have more regulative power over electricity supply within their territories. So why will you be pushing blame to just discos? So I don't know. Some states, if I can remember, there's some states that are already exploring these power projections. Is it Abia or Imo, one of those states? They are already exploring independent power projects and substantial electricity markets. So Edo State Governor, you have no excuse this point. You cannot run away. Just do the right thing for your people. But I still like that he said he's going to explore other options and see how we can put it in the hands of other stakeholders. I think that's what we want to hear.
The last areas where the people would want to see more activities and actions taken, because through the job as the former governor of Anambra State, who he seems to have something maybe for or against, who knows. But we've seen that there's some governors right now, even Soludo, there are times when, but I believe it's just like the popularity of Peter Obi seems to overshadow their own governance. So in some ways they have to remind people that I'm still the governor of this state. Whatever happens, it's my fault, but it's not my fault. I'm responsible. Well, I'm not responsible for it. So they speak from both sides of their mouth sometimes, and it's very important that power generation is one of the key areas that the governor has to focus on. Nigeria is such a huge country. The population is enormous. The resources is not reaching everybody in the country. It's limited. So we need people to be proactive. We need governors to think out of the box and not rely extensively on this power generation from these companies, because we have the generation and we also have the distribution. It's the distribution aspect that he was talking about, that he's not responsible for it. It was bought by Fidelity Bank has the largest stake, the share at the Edo State distribution company, while the state also really have a meager share out of it, which is true. But you cannot continue to call them infer Peter Obi's, because if you didn't call it there, you've already inferred it, and it can already be deduced that what you're saying. The man left Fidelity how many years ago? Since it was before he came to become the governor of Anambra State. So over time, we just see that there's this just pointing of hands to the character or the person of Peter Obi, who it seems to be the easiest target for people to lash out on. But the crux of the matter remains that the people of Edo State deserves more power supply. And the future and the economy that we're trying to build in Africa relies strongly on power generation and distribution in the country, because we cannot power an economy, we cannot power an industry, we cannot power anything with this epileptic power supply that we are receiving in the country. There are some places that haven't seen light for a year or months, or maybe just comes few hours in a day, 1 hour, 2 hours, or even it's a low current, just like the way we call it in Nigeria. So those are issues that needs to be addressed. That what are alternative means? We've seen the State House in Abuja getting themselves off the grid. How can you ensure that you even get your state off the grid? There are cities in the world that are producing electricity for themselves through solar, through wind. So those are other areas, even through a dam.
Dams.
And I'm sure there would be water resources in it. Those are expensive means, but they are not so expensive means like coal, like some other where some people can call it like non-climatic responsive areas. But those are things that are needed to ensure that economic activities continue to progress in the state. So the governors in Nigeria needs to, not only for Edo State, but even on your state. When I was back home last month, I suffered a whole lot trying to get adequate electricity. We had to run a generator and some other alternative power supply. So those are areas that the governors needs to look into. They are getting more money now. Remember we spoke earlier about the allocation that is now going into their hands. More money is entering their pockets. Can you actually dedicate one into a project that would supply, even if it's for your capital cities alone, let people have access to uninterrupted power supply.
Very important. Okay, let's see the next story we have here. The Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria, NDCN, has established a prima facie case of medical negligence and professional misconduct in the death of Master Nkanu Adichie Esege, the 21-month-old son of acclaimed author Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. The findings follow an investigation initiated after a formal complaint was lodged with the council on 16th January 2026. Medical practitioners from Eurocare Multi-Specialist Hospital and Atlantis Pediatric Hospital responded to the complaint, submitting affidavits and presenting oral testimony before the MDCN investigative panel. At the conclusion of its 25th session held in Abuja on 17 to 18 February 2026, the panel determined that a prima facie case of medical negligence had been established against three doctors: Dr. Tosin Majakodumi, Medical Director of Eurocare; Dr. Titus Ogundare, anesthesiologist at Eurocare; and Dr. Atinuke Owaje, Chief Medical Director of Atlantis Pediatric Hospital. Okay, I think that's the much. Okay, I mean, this very sensitive issue with Chimamanda's, involving Chimamanda and her late baby. I think, well, so first of all, whenever a child dies, especially a 12-month-old, it hits me differently. It's very painful, given the fact with how she, I mean, that's a story for another day, but with how she has waited long to have another child. But beyond that emotions and beyond all of what her personal life and all of those things, this is about institutional accountability. And, the MDCN establishing a prima facie case, which means they believe there is enough evidence to, proceed to carry out full disciplinary action. And it does not mean guilt has been finalized. It only means that serious questions have been raised as regards this issue. That is what this means, and this is very important because we've had series of negligence reports, series of medical negligence enter the conversation in Nigeria. Sorry to say, they are often from private hospitals in Nigeria, but a lot of families have grieved quietly, even those that have come out on social media to say, oh, this is the case, this is what has happened. I mean, the case has not really been, taken into consideration that much. And hospitals will say, because a lot of doctors after this, when this case came up, a lot of doctors, a lot of medical practitioners came out to say, people should issue careful statements, people should do this, but very few cases like this have reached regulatory visibility, even if we know people have come out, and I repeat, to cry about this issue. So I like that this one has reached where it should reach. Chimamanda has decided to, take this up seriously for formal scrutiny, and it forces the system to respond to public questions. It forces the system to respond to respond publicly. And first of all, Nigeria's healthcare system is stretched thin. We always complain about the doctor to patients ratio, which is very, very low compared to what WHO has recommended, which is 4 doctors to per 10,000 people, and 1 doctor to, I think, 300 persons rather. Many facilities, if you still go to many hospitals in Nigeria, they operate under pressure. Is it limited equipment? Is it that there are not enough doctors? Shortages in so many things, staffing, equipment. Still going back to power instability, we are still talking about. Edo State is complaining about electricity. Imagine you want to go to the hospital and there's no electricity, no power supply to be able to carry out operations or treat patients, and all of those things. None of these excuse negligence in one way or the other. They just sort of provide the context to why some of these things are happening. So I think accountability here is very, very important. Accountability here should be very firm, and it must also be very fair. Accountability has to be very fair. If there is any professional misconduct from any sort, and if it is confirmed, sanctions are very necessary. Put out the necessary penalty and let everybody see. This is not to say we are punishing anybody emotionally, but this is to protect future occurrences. So this kind of case will not, arise again, because they are still prolonging this issue. These people have been, I don't know, this case has not been finalized, but these people have been confirmed to this the death of or the loss of Chimamanda's son. But why are we still prolonging the issue? I think all of this all of these prolonged cases only erodes that trust people have in the healthcare system, and sort of weakens the system. It weakens the system. Healthcare practice, first of all, is not something you just wake up and you start doing. People's lives are in your hands. So whenever there is any small mistake, take back licenses, carry out all the necessary penalties that should be carried out. I think that's much I have to say about this.
Well, I'm happy that there is an investigation ongoing and there is a progress in that investigation, because do you remember this case is one of those high profiled cases that we've seen in the country when it comes to medical negligence, while there are many millions of other Nigerians, hundreds of thousands if we come to a very low number of Nigerians who have experienced medical negligence in this country, but they do not have the opportunity to pursue the case with the vitality that the family of Chimamanda and Dr. Seke has been able to pursue this case with the regulatory and necessary authorities, and even with the courts as well. So, and when this started, a lot of Nigerians and people from the medical space, they sort of in some ways wanted to shield it, and they were protecting the people. A lot of people said that the witness account that Chimamanda said wasn't valid enough, because a doctor would never behave like this, a doctor would never behave like that, and the argument just went wild at the time, because there was just that cabal that wanted to protect these medical doctors. And when we saw the aunt, who happened to be the person who has been touring media rounds and providing access to the family's insights and information about the things that has been done, she mentioned that there was lack of empathy as well from the medical doctor who was primarily an anesthesiologist who was primarily responsible for sedating the child for the procedure to happen, down to other medical practitioners around this, even from the facility where they had been transferred down to Urake. There were a lot of gross misappropriation or misrepresentation or I don't know the other miss I can use for it, but there was just a lot of irregularities that were done. and there were a lot of procedural steps that needed to be taken that were not taken and in administering those medical care to the child. But it's very sad for the family. Just like you said, they've waited almost 10 years to have this child. These children were conceived through surrogacy. It took a whole lot for them to reach that conclusion, and one out of the child is dead now. She's grieving, she's hurting, like the sister-in-law has mentioned, but it is not only going to end at the suspension. It should also create an institutional responsibility, an institutional change, that we have seen that people that do not even have the weight, such as Chimamanda have, can be able to seek justice and be able to get justice at the end of the day. Because more often than not, these cases are brushed aside, or they're often forgotten over paper. When paper has been written, when documentation has been filed over the years, you just see it's been eroded. But because of a high-profile case that this is, it cannot easily be neglected. And it should not end with this regulatory agency alone. I believe the court should also have a say. The court should be able to make their own judgments whether these people would lose their license. Not only lose their license, it's going to be a case that is going to, maybe it's a homicide, maybe I don't know what case can be brought against them to ensure that they are adequately punished for the negligence that they have performed. And also Eurocare and some other medical institutions that are also caught up in this drama should also be adequately punished for the things that they've done, because there are people who have also come out to say that Eurocare has done something to me. There's this popular fashion designer, is it Toyin Lawani has also mentioned that she had a procedure at Eurocare as well, and she had issues with them, and she still have a voice. Her voice is lost. She couldn't sit very well. She also had something with her spine. She can be able to. She still feels the pain over the years, and they've just been telling her that that's just how it is. So she's also taking up the legal case against Eurocare to say that you can't continue to behave like this. And this is a system that when these people go abroad, they behave very well. When there is another system that there's check and balances that look at the work that they are doing. So in Nigeria, because you're not being paid well, because you have grievance against the system, because you have a sort of problem, doesn't mean that you're going to jeopardize people's lives as well. So when issues like this are raised, a lot of Nigerians are interested, not because it's the personality of Chimamanda alone, but because of the millions of other people who are also looking forward to say that if this can be done, maybe I can also speak up. There are a lot of people who came out to say that my dad died because of a nurse's negligence, the doctor didn't do this, the nurse, we just had to go and bury the person because we didn't have the means to pursue this case in the courts. But I'm expecting that this is, at least Chimamanda's family has been vindicated in some ways, that they're not lying, because a lot of people tagged a lie. They couldn't have said that, a doctor couldn't have done this, or another doctor couldn't have said this to you. But it's still very painful for the family. They are still grieving. I just hope that they have the fortitude to bear the loss while they seek justice at the end of the day.
Okay. I think that brings us to the next on the last story we have here. President Bola Tinubu has nominated the chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms, Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, as Minister of State for Finance. Oyedele replaces Dr. Doris Anita Ozoka, who has been redeployed to the Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning as Minister of State. Her third portfolio in the administration. The president on Monday conveyed Oyedele's nomination to the Senate for confirmation in a letter to the Senate President Godswill Akpabio, according to a statement by his special advisor on information and strategy, Bayo Onanuga. Oyedele is an economist, accountant, and public policy expert who led the comprehensive overhaul of Nigeria's tax system. The committee, inaugurated on August 2023, delivered 4 executive bills that consolidated over 60 taxes into fewer than 10 statutes, introducing significant reforms, including a zero-income tax rate for Nigerians earning 800,000 naira annually or less. Now, I think this is Tinubu nominating Oyedele as Minister of State for Financing, or for Finance, signals that continuity of the tax reforms so he can get more insights, more leverage to, do what they need to do with tax reforms. And I think Oyedele has been central to the Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms Committee. We can agree to that, and that committee's work consolidated, as it is stated here, over 60 taxes into fewer than 10, and that is huge, because Nigeria's tax environment has for a long time been very complicated, and this man came and is trying to do something, trying to make us understand it, trying to make it work, trying to make it structured. So businesses, I know a lot of businesses will complain, most of them have complained about multiple taxation, federal, state, local, but we've seen in the news today and at different levels what this tax reforms is now doing, and now simplifying things, now bringing compliance to books, and all of those things. Now I feel, first of all, Nigeria's tax to GDP ratio has hovered around did they say 9% or 10% or so? If I'm not mistaken, I'm not an economist, but or even lower in some years. But I think every Nigerian is very much in tune with economics and what business these days. Because going back to what I was saying, I think that is significantly below the African average, which is closer to like 16 to 18%. So without revenue, if we're counting removing revenue and government and looking at government borrowing increases, all of those has made up the tax to GDP ratio over around 10%, not even still up to the 16%, but especially with debt servicing, we have been seeing it's taking a large portion of national revenue and all of those things, and sometimes even over 90% past the reports we are seeing. So fiscal this is just to say, this long story I'm talking about, it's just to say that fiscal reform is not optional, it is a survival economy. So whatever it is, if it is to put what the Oyedele as finance minister, to give him more leverage to structure this Nigeria's tax landscape or tax ecosystem properly and better. I think it's way to I think it's way to go. Even if people are still complaining about the reality, and all of those things of our economy, inflation, poverty, the pressure, the economic pressure on people. But I still feel like this government must just look for a way to compensate, improving collection efficiency, for people somehow, and still goes back to making people still understand. Even if they say people just do not want to understand these tax reforms. It's not like they do not really, they just have just chosen not to understand it. But altogether, I'm happy he's taking this position because I've seen his work, I've been following his work, and I think he's doing quite well.
Well, Oyedele has his work cut for him already, and I think this is a reward of the extensive work that he's done for the president, and the president is well happy for his efforts so far, that he has been able to present an executive bill to the National Assembly and been able to see that through over the years. And President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is somebody who we're told, or who we've seen that said he identifies a talent and bringing different talents into his own administration. And he's also somebody who doesn't shy away from firing and employing. We've seen that he's one of the only presidents that we've had in a long time who has been able, within the same time of their 4-year administration, has fired and hired many people in different areas of his own governance. Usually we waited for late President Buhari to change a minister for how many years, and some ministers stayed for 8 years, some ministers stayed for 7 years, until some ministers even said I want to leave before they left, whether they were performing right or not. He just believed that I've employed somebody, let them do their job. But Tinubu is somebody that doesn't allow that. He wants to see the result after how many years. We've seen what he did in 2 years when he came to 2 years of his administration administration and the people that he fired, the people that he employed, and even for better edu, that people were carrying placard all about us saying, let the humanitarian minister come back. He didn't even look at us. He has fired. He's more interested in the governance of the country. But going back to the appointment of Oyedele, I think this is a welcome development. Wale Edu is a fantastic minister of finance, but having Oyedele join him in the ministry is also going to boost and help the fantastic work that they are doing. But at the end of the day, the governance must be responsive to the people's needs. And as much as we want to get in more tax, we want to make it more, we need to make the systems more accessible, make the system more also responsive to the people's needs, just like I always emphasize. Because one thing is for the government to get all of this revenue, and then for this to go back to the state, go back to local government, and we expect those people to also do the needful. Don't tax me before I go back to go and hold another person responsible. That what are you doing with my money at the end of the day? So tax responsibly, and that's what they want to do. Shift the burden away from the lower end of the economic structure down to or up to the higher end of the framework, so that we can have more people who are earning more to pay more, especially businesses, industrial companies as well in Nigeria, to be able to pay more. So, congratulations to him, Oyedele, who has his work cut off for him. Just to reiterate again, and we hope to see what he's going to do. Should he should President Tinubu be elected next election, he would be one of the people that the president will want to retain in his administration.
Yeah, let's see how this is going to move to practical enforcement and, of course, impact, just like Adewale has said. But that's the much we can bring your way today on the Idea Morning Digest. Let's see the weather report. Okay, good to have you back. And yes, we'll say a whole lot today, Wale. A whole lot that is crucial to development, a whole lot that is crucial to, our growth as in the African region as a whole, in the world, and also as a nation. But like I said before, if you like what we do here, or you have opinions, ideas, and thoughts about all we've brought your way, you can send them to us at Idea Television, all our social media platforms on Twitter, X, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, you name them. Yes, we are there at Idea Television, and of course via email at Idea TV Limited. Yes, my name is Cynthia Bassi, and